One, I think that our people have such a vast history, been on the earth such a long period of time, till the Kemetic history legacy is black people's, the Moorish history and legacy is black people's, the Islamic legacy and history is all belongs really at the root to black people. So whatever piece of the legacy that you want to pick, that's fine. If you want to pick when the Moors rule, our people ruled Spain under the Moors, you want to pick that, that's fine. You want to go to Kemet, that's fine. All I think that the debates are doing is just we ironing out the wrinkles.
That's all it is doing, brother. If you are confident in what you say, you're not afraid of debates. You see what I'm saying? Only those who's not really sure of themselves are afraid to really get in that ring.
If someone came to the house Negro and said, let's go, let's separate, naturally that Uncle Tom would say, go where? What could I do without boss? Where would I live? How would I dress? Who would look out for me? That's the house Negro. But if you went to the field Negro and said, let's go, let's separate, he wouldn't even ask you where or how. He'd say, yes, let's go. And that would end it right there.
Oh shit, I'm out here today again with the bumped into the mighty Sankofa. Black power, brother.
Black power, love, peace, and you know what I want to say? We got to keep sharpening our minds, brothers and sisters. I'm going to jump right in. And I mean, we got to sharpen our minds, as I said before, in the words of the great Dr. Amos Wilson, the whole purpose and functionality of knowledge is to advance, obviously to educate to advance, and from advancing, the whole point of advancing is to lead to self-preservation, okay? And to come to resolve and problem solving. That is the whole purpose of knowledge. And in a black so-called conscious community, and I'm gonna say so-called, even though there is a conscious community, reason why I say so-called, because we use the term a lot of times consciousness. Peace, black man, how you doing? We use the term conscious, and it's to the point where it's a very ambiguous term. It's very open-ended. I mean, it seems very vague. A lot of people use it, and from an ideological and philosophical perspective, conscious, we have to stop being conscious in actions and our deeds as well, not just in a philosophical aspect. We got to start seeing some resolve out of these. We have to start using this knowledge or this consciousness to see problem solving. Problem solving that we see is evident. Things that we see is making a transformation to heal some of these social ills, okay, that you see plaguing us as a people, okay? Because it is high time for us to wake up. And when I say wake up, knowing knowledge and being able to quote Malcolm X, or being able to quote your favorite scholar or historian, or being able to quote some historical data doesn't necessarily make you conscious. It makes you conscious in a sense where you are aware, because conscious only means aware. But we have to start just using consciousness and being stuck there, because we use Lean or Tom's toothpaste, and we eat Morningstar meatless sausages, okay, and you burn incense, okay, and you say Harambe, doesn't necessarily make you conscious. And nothing wrong, and I'm not saying stop using that Lean toothpaste and stop eating them meatless sausages either. Right. I'm just saying we need to have all the components together, and to a point where it's not just conscious outwardly, it's not conscious symbol, it's conscious substance, and we're using this so-called, this consciousness where it's not so-called, then it is an actualization of conscious, not just an ideological or philosophical thing. It is something we're starting to see tangible evidence, where we're starting to heal the pathologies that is affecting us as a people. Okay. Anything you want to go into, or questions you want to ask me, brother?
Well, Dr. King's birthday is Monday, as we all know. Go into a little something about his life and, you know, stuff like that.
Actually, Dr. King's birthday was the 15th. He was born January 15th, okay? His name, he was actually born Michael King, actually. 1929, I believe. I don't know if I had the year, but he was born as Michael. I'm about to say dog. He was born as no doctor. Okay, he was born as Michael King, okay? And he took on the name Martin Luther during his time in Boston, Massachusetts, which is actually my hometown, Boston, Massachusetts, where he was a student at Boston University. Okay, he's also a part of Freemasonry. No, not to say that there's anything wrong or right or with that. It just is what it is. He was a part of that. He was a Michael King, and he took on the name because he was a student of theology. Okay, and as a student of theology, he had to come across the knowledge of the Protestant person, the Protestant from the 1500s, the one who started the Protestant movement. Actually, his name was Martin Luther. Okay, and and it's called Protestant because he protested against the Roman Catholic Church because of their so-called idolatry and things like that, a distortion of what he considered a distortion of the true teachings of Jesus, according to his perspective. So he protested, and that's where the Protestant or the Protestant movement derives. Martin Luther King, as a student of theology, and as obviously as a person who was fond of that man and his mission, took on the name, okay? Martin Luther, opposed to Michael King, who he was born. Okay, he changed his name to Martin Luther King, and he also got his doctorate degree, okay, in theology. So therefore, he took on the term Doctor Martin Luther King from there. There's a lot of history. Martin Luther King goes back. I mean, he's from my hometown. He went to Boston University. Very intelligent man. Actually met Coretta Scott King there. He did a lot of activism in the streets on the grassroots levels out there in Roxbury. Taught at the 12th Baptist Church, the historic 12th Baptist Church, which used to be on Charlotte Ave in Roxbury. Very historical, and it's historical because Harriet Tubman also brought the slaves there. That was one of the safe havens when Harriet Tubman brought the slaves up through Roxbury in the late 1800s. Okay, Martin Luther King, a very intelligent brother, very passionate brother. He had I believe he did have a genuine zeal for the betterment and improvement of humanity, and particularly black people. I believe he had that zeal, in my opinion, from my observation, more closer to towards the end of his life. The late Dr. Martin Luther King was one who I can say I had more in agreement with as far as his ideology and his perspective of things. The reason why I say that, because once he started to, it seemed like, you know, before that he had the ability, very intelligent, very well-spoken man, he had the ability to galvanize people, to get their attention, okay, by speaking on things that were relevant and critical issues, to get people to agree upon and want to unify around those certain critical issues that mattered. As far as mobilizing the people, okay, and getting them out there and doing that, he had other people to help that were better at organizing the people and getting them together. But he had the ability to get the people's attention and call their attention to things that needed to be addressed, okay? Not everything that needed to be addressed, because there was a lot of other things. He didn't go at white supremacy that hard. He didn't go at it towards the end of his death either, okay? That's not why I necessarily disagree with him, because that's not what his stance was. However, towards the end, at the late Dr. Martin Luther King, when he started to protest the Vietnam War, you see a lot of his speeches started to get a little bit more militant. I'm not gonna say real militant, but he started to speak on things. He sounded more like an angry black man instead of just a preacher in the pulpit. Okay, he leaked up with Elijah Muhammad. You know what I mean? You know, the powers that be. And, you know, they frowned upon that because. Right. What people seen in that, okay, the effect that would have on the aspect of unifying people, okay, who didn't have the same outlook religiously, ideologically, politically, or socially, they was going to be able to potentially break those boundaries, cross that barrier, and have people unifying around principled things. And that was a very turbulent and critical era in the late 60s as well. You had the Vietnam War going on. You had a lot of things that the government tried to conceal from the people, from the public, was coming out. It was a time of revolution, and during that time, when Martin Luther King was coming out there at that critical time, you had the rise of the Black Power movement was coming on strong at that time. Okay, you had the Nation of Islam membership was growing. You had a lot of things were going on at that time. Okay, so when Martin Luther King started to change his speech from just keeping them peaceful and turning the other cheek, to trying to get people to really stand up, okay, politically, okay, and go against the government, and having a broader scope and perspective of the things that the government are doing to conceal what they're doing to destroy and eliminate black people and eradicate us and keep us unequal, you know what I'm saying, along the lines of politics, economics, law, labor, politics, entertainment. He started to expose those truths. And when he started to expose those truths and he started to link up with people who they didn't want him to link up with, okay, it seemed like he broke an oath. So they had to silence him, especially when he went to Memphis, Tennessee. And when he went there, he was dealing with real work. As far as it was the trash collectors union or something like that. Wasn't that what he was going there for? And he was going there to mobilize. He already galvanized the people. I mean, he already got their attention, okay, on that critical matter. Now he was going there to mobilize on the ground level and really start to do this for the, you know what I mean, to mobilize and really bring about political action, okay, because they don't care if you preach from the pulpit.
Right.
Once you start to do something that is going to trigger a political effect or response, then you're going to have people unifying that don't necessarily have the same ideologies, and they're going to cross those barriers and unify on something that is going to affect them politically, which ties into their economics. Then they're going to shut you down. You're really a threat then. You're not just a preacher in a pulpit. Okay, when he started going against Vietnam War and he started unifying people along more critical issues, and he started exposing more things that the government were doing, okay, and he started to unify with the likes of Elijah Muhammad. You know, they had to shut him down. You know what I mean? It's said, I don't know how true it is, but it is said that J. Edgar Hoover, you know, had a meeting with him. You know what I mean? Because he was a little fiery before. He had a meeting with him, supposedly. You can watch the documentaries on YouTube and Google it or look it up yourself online to get further edification about the details, you know, per se. But he supposedly had a meeting with Dr. Martin Luther King and told him, you know, I'm sure it had something to do with, nigga, you better quell all this militant talk and all this galvanizing and organizing the people around certain critical issues. We can use the likes of you, because they always did use the preacher to keep the people in their place.
Right.
Now, him being a prominent one at a time of change and revolution, they really was very critical and pivotal that he watched the manner and the nature of his speech, okay, and the things that he was talking about, and the things that he was planning to do that could have an effective, positive impact, and therefore a ripple effect on the government, a positive effect on our people. So therefore, J. Edgar Hoover, supposedly, I do believe it, sounds just about right if you know about J. Edgar Hoover's legacy, you know what I mean? So, you know, Dr. Martin Luther King, very great man, very intelligent. They say he has a lot of dirt on him, but that's not even here or there, because it's not really, at the end of the day, it's not about the man, it's about the master plan. It's not about the man, it's about the mind. So, you know, we can get into the dynamics all day of the dirt on Martin Luther King. They said he had quite a few. They said he did love white women. And they also said, this is just from my research, that they said, according to the FBI, okay, agents said, because, you know, of course they had him tapped, they were following him, they were monitoring his every move, okay, and a lot of that information about the things that he did do came out through the Freedom of Information Act. Okay, peace, black man, all right? And it was said that, you know, he had a thing for prostitutes. You know, he had a thing for white prostitutes, you know what I mean? And I think J. Edgar Hoover had that dirt on him, you know what I mean? And having that dirt on him, he kind of tried to make sure he marginalized the type of nature of the speeches that he gave. He also had speech writers. They said, and this is not to downplay or dog the great Martin Luther King, because I do understand that the people love him. And there is a positive energy, you know what I'm saying, that resonates in our people when you mention the name of the likes of a Dr. Martin Luther King.
Right.
So, you know, I don't always want to be the disgruntled black man that has to shut everything down, but it's time, as I said from the beginning, that we sharpen our minds, that we broaden our scope, that we know what is. Sometimes it's not about right or wrong, it's about just knowing. You draw your own conclusions, whether it's right or wrong, then you go from there. Let's have the complete picture of Martin Luther King, so we can have a greater understanding of not only him and where he failed, or the great things that he did, because we can take from both. We can take from his failure and learn how not to go a certain way, and we can take from his greatness and build upon and catapult upon that on a different level, okay? However, it's good that we have not just the PBS perspective and interpretation of him, and the hallmark representation and perspective of Dr. Martin Luther King, but we have in totality a broader understanding and perspective of not just him, many of our leaders, many of our heroes and our sheroes. It's time that we step it up, get a broader scope of understanding and knowledge, so therefore we can be better functioning as organizations and as groups, and we can have better leadership. Okay, we need to have our own counterintelligence, and in order to do that, man, we got to start doing that research. You know what I'm saying? We can't just watch YouTube documentaries, and not that there's nothing wrong with that, because you can learn from it.
Right.
But a lot of us are getting lazy with all the technology that we have. We just want to Google anything. You know what I'm saying? Get a crash course on some information and swear we're scholars.
Let me
Okay.
switch gears a little bit, brother.
Yeah.
You was mentioning the counterintelligence program and how the white man uses and still does propaganda against our people. Now, with Kemet and Egypt, isn't it true that there have been many, particularly white writers for a long time, that have spread negative propaganda about Egypt? That's no mystery. So I think that shouldn't we be careful when we just take this writer and that writer when they talk about Egypt, when we know Egypt has been the subject of a negative propaganda smear campaign, and I believe largely due to that, because the Bible doesn't have anything good to say about Egypt.
That's right. And that goes to show you that the white man had his hand in that goddamn Bible. You know what I'm saying? Well, you gotta understand the smear campaign and the misrepresentation of Egypt, which gives it this negative light in history, written out of any respectable, for the most part, commentary in history as far as being a beacon of spirituality and the essence of where our spiritual discipline systems, mathematics and art come from. Okay, you gotta understand something. I mean, even, let's go back to Herodotus and Homer, the Greeks, known as the father of history. They gave great respect to Egypt as being the father of civilization, especially Greek civilization. Okay, Greeks is a people of antiquity, but you got to understand as well, from that time, from the Greeks on, the smear campaign from the white man, the white writers talking about Kemet in a negative light, because not all of them talk about Kemet in a negative light either. You got some of them want to be Egyptologists and try to take some of the fruit, meaning the fruit of knowledge and spirituality and ma'at from Kemet, because a lot of the times they try to plagiarize or try to connect with a lot of great things throughout our history. When we're talking about the negative aspect, so I'm gonna stick with that. On the negative aspect, that smear campaign has went back from Greece to Rome, the same way. In order to destroy a people or destroy a person's image, you have to destroy the concept of that person. So you have to destroy the idea in the mind of others to make that homicide look justifiable homicide. When I say homicide, it was a homicide to the history, the great history, the great foundation of spirituality, the essence of where most of the spiritual disciplines that we have derive from, in order to assassinate the character of Egypt, or to go there and take over that land, because that's what the Greeks did. So prior to doing that, they had to assassinate the integrity, the character, the morality of the ancient Kemites in order to make their conquest look, or their murder of their greatness look justifiable in the annals of history. Now we have the same things now. A lot of people say, well, Champollion, he's the father of Egypt. No, he's not the father of Egypt, because we know Egypt is a black civilization. Egypt is the father of Egypt. You know what I'm saying? Egyptology. The word ology only means the study of. He's not the first one to ever start studying no Kemet. I mean, there's people studying that all around the world, in the diaspora of Africa, and some Africans on the continent prior to him. Now, when you talk about through the Rosetta Stone, he broke down a lot of the hieroglyphics. I mean, that's not saying nothing. He's still going into the history of a proven black civilization of antiquity, that we know that. Okay? And many of the old writings say, and this did you come from the Bible first. The first shall be last and the last shall be first. Or man, know thyself. Ancient Kemetic words of wisdom. Okay? So we're in a time where the paradigm of consciousness is shifting. If the first shall be last and the last shall be first, and we know that the first, according to even the Greek historians, according to archaeology, according to ancient archives and memorabilia, we know that ancient Kemet is the father of civilization, even though we know it was the daughter of Ethiopia or Abyssinia. Right. Okay? But we know as far as on the level that it had, with as much as a strong stronghold that it had, and as a powerful entity or powerful empire that it was at the time, it did surpass Abyssinia, its mother, in greatness. So we know that it came from that. We're not saying the first exact people came from there, but the first great civilization that you still have that can't really be duplicated, and that is tangibly still right there right now, okay? Where the first shall be last. So we know that that's the first, okay? Now, the first shall be last and the last shall be first, meaning we're in a time where that which was first is coming back. The knowledge of ancient Kemet. There's no coincidence. The knowledge of Ma'at is coming back, is resurfacing. Brothers, their spirit is attracted to wearing the okay? we got to start dealing with things from a broader perspective, not just a so-called intellectual. Yes, be intellectual, but use both hemispheres of your brain. Peace. What's up, brother Nate? I'm gonna holler at you. You know what I'm saying? We got to use both hemispheres of our brain, our left and our right. One for intellectualizing, okay? The other one, which deals with creativity, as they say, also spirituality, okay? That is Mayat in itself, because Mayat means balance, okay? So when we deal with the perspective of looking at things from a higher faculty or higher frequency of thought, we know that there's attraction power and there's energy behind these things. There's a reason why, and it's not out of being blind of the fact that we're not a Hebrew, or that we're not of this, or we're not that, or we're not that. Because by saying that we're connecting to the knowledge of ancient Kemet, doesn't mean that we think we all came from Kemet or Ethiopia, because we know we came from West Africa. But because we know that the foundation of the people before there was in West Africa, because civilization started in the Nile Valley, that Nile Valley data, that Nile Valley image, the symbology, okay, of the first people on earth is coming back to the people who are taken from the continent of Africa, brought into diaspora right here in America, and cut off and robbed from a knowledge itself. So the knowledge of the principles of the first disciplines known to mankind has found its way right back to us and is resonating in many of our people. And we're waking up to see how the Bible and how a lot of the other Islam, a lot of not all, but a lot of the principles of Islam and a lot of the things that we were attracted to, and a lot of things that we were attracted to at a time, and as our sojourn as a people here in captivity, looking for an identity through Islam, through Christianity, through the Hebrews, and through many other kinds of doctrines, we can find a connection going right back to that which was first, Kemet, and it's being last, meaning the knowledge of the essence of where all these things came from in these last days and times, so-called. We're coming right back to that knowledge in full circle. So we can throw Champollion in there, but man, that's nothing. Things happen and don't happen for a reason. There's a reason why, you know what I'm saying, he had the energy or the spirit on him to interpret certain things. And his interpretations was flawed. Many of their interpretations was flawed. You gotta remember, this Caucasian doesn't possess the pineal power and energy to be able to really break it down in its fullest and to its fullest and more deeper meaning and understanding and purpose, because that energy or that spirit doesn't dwell within him innately by nature. Okay, now we have great scholars who went out there and did field research. We have the brothers like Ashwa Kwesi, who went out there and did the groundwork. We have the Dr. Benz, who went out there and did the groundwork. We have Leonard Jeffries. I was just about to name that brother, Mfodishi, right down the street on 125th Street, who breaks this down, who Champollion ain't got nothing on these brothers, because the resonant spirit and that energy of the first being in the last and the last being first is rising up in our people. That Kundalini energy is rising up, the ability to break down these sciences and connect to it without trying to be an Egyptian, but understanding the principles, the first principles and the sciences to the people who were made last, because they were cut off from the knowledge of themselves when they were brought here, are connecting back to that, not only in a search of an identity by trying to be an Egyptian, but identifying with the principles that made Egypt a great place. It's not about the landmass. That's a landmass called Egypt. We're not worshiping a landmass or the damn Nile River. It is the knowledge that has the ability to transform, to heal, and to give you balance in your life. Have you ever read the 142 Negative Confessions of Mayat? I know you have, brother, right?
Yes, sir.
You can see where the Ten Commandments are plagiarized from. I had a Hebrew made a comment on YouTube and said, what did he say? If there's 613 commandments in the Bible, there's only 142 laws of Ma'at. There's no way it could have been plagiarized. Yes, it could have. It's based on. It's like when they make a movie and they say it's based on a true story.
Right.
But then in Hollywood throws their own stuff up in there too. But it's based on a true story. The same way. That is based on the principles of Ma'at. You can look at it and line it up. Okay, and unless, because you know, common sense isn't common, so I don't want to tell people to use common sense all the time. I'm gonna just say do some research. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Go, come outside the box, and you know, liberate your mind. You know what I mean? From just the dogma. Okay, don't be afraid to step out of that dogma. Don't be afraid to be wrong, because it's not always about being wrong or right. I like to be proven wrong. You know why? Because when you're proven wrong in a very diplomatic and somebody using constructive criticism, so therefore not to offend you, I can accept being wrong, because now in being wrong I learned something that I didn't know. I just broadened my scope of awareness and knowledge now. I have something to look into that I can say, wow, okay, I didn't know this. Now I do. I just brought in my scope of awareness or my perspective on a specific thing or some specific things. So it is very important. And back to the Mayat thing now with the 613 laws that they have, because it's broken down in different categories. You have the moral, civil, dietary, and ceremonial laws. Okay, Kemet didn't have all that. Remember, we wasn't dealing with that kind of dogma. We was dealing with spirituality. Dogma is based on spirituality, so we didn't need all them damn laws and all that. You know what I mean? And then the laws in the Deuteronomy and Levitical laws go into a breakdown of what the laws meant. And then you have a repeat of the laws, because Deuteronomy means a second giving of the law. The Levitical law, the Exodus laws that you read, the 10 Commandments in Exodus 20th chapter, and then the Levitical laws, when you read that, all it is a second given in Deuteronomy. That's why you have so many damn laws. As I said before, and I don't always want to keep sounding repetitive, but I have to keep saying this, because what people do is when they see the videos, they go in on Sankofa. Sankofa, you don't know what you're talking about. Sankofa, you fell out the truth. The Hebrew Israelites specifically say this. You know what I mean? But they have never yet to say, well, boom, Sankofa, here's the evidence. Or can refer me to where you can find an original manuscript, tangible transcript, or documentation that's contemporary with the time that was supposed to be revealed to Moses by a burning bush. A burning bush on a mountain. And this is a literal story that people take, for those who do take it literal. A burning bush gave him a damn a 10 Commandment. You know what I'm saying? Now in the hood, a burning bush means gonorrhea. I'm just being funny. You know what I mean? But and we know that them stories and principles in the Bible, I'm not even saying throw the baby out with the bathwater, because I will not say that there is no principle in the Bible. The Bible is true and it has principles in it, but those are universal principles. Those are principles that you can use as a stepping stone to improve your life, to change your ways and actions, to be a better, more productive and positive self, to have better health and more peace within. There is universal principles in the Bible. But you got to understand something. It's also tampered with. The lies, the truth is to attract you, and the lies is to entrap you. So we want to know how to differentiate and put things in their perspective. That's why we have to broaden our scope of awareness. That's why we have to step out of the box of dogma, and that's why we have to become more researchers, okay? And not just listeners and emotionalists, okay? What I mean by listeners, a lot of times we allow people to just give lectures and speeches, and because we know we're people of rhythm and soul and spirit, black people, so we, man, that's right, brother, right on, black power, that's good. It just ain't good enough. We gotta start to do the research. Why? Because we gotta pass this on to our babies. We're living in some crazy times, y'all. I mean, deception is at an all-time high, and it's gonna get even more deceiving. We're living in some crazy times. We gotta feed our baby, because the vultures are out there. Okay. We have, when I mean by vultures, I mean the distractions or the destruction in many forms are out there. We have television doing it to our children, and religion on a psychological level, acting as vultures on the minds of our children. We have these drug foods that we're feeding our kids on a chemical level, okay? And we also have white supremacy doing it on all levels, okay? So we don't want to just get too caught up in the dogma of black power and white supremacy without really trying to go through certain methods or enact certain kind of methods to bring about real, true black empowerment. That's what black power means. It's become a slogan and some ambiguous term which really has no validness to it. Niggas don't even want to even say that. I mean, that's just whack. That sounds like something from the 60s. You know what I'm saying? We know that the word power could never be a time or a slogan from an era, because nobody's putting no energy or real work behind that and bringing empowerment. It sounds like just a vague slogan. So, you know what I mean? We don't want to just, when you say white supremacy, then it seems like a nigga just complaining because he don't really want to do nothing, because he's quoting some false black power from the 60s with no concept. He's not up with the times. Yeah, black power is alive and it's up with the times now. As long as you're doing things, okay? As long as you're putting work behind your actions. As long as you're not just theological or ideological, you're also proactive, okay? You're not just a lecturer, you're also a person on the ground doing that groundwork, okay? Or whatever gift that you're endowed with, you're using that to advance, to help elevate, to heal the pathologies of the people, to empower yourself or others, okay? That's the blueprint to bring it in a transformation that is much needed to address and heal these pathologies that you see consuming us as a people, you know? So that's why I said, you know, we got to stay sharpening our minds, because the opposition is going to get greater, and as the greater we get, we already have to have plans set in motion. As the greater we get, and the more we start to do things on broader levels, we're going to be met with opposition, some internal, a lot external. So we have to already know how to deal with these things. We already have to have this knowledge for these measures intact. okay? Or we're just being we're just a bunch of sloganers with a concept and ideology that's fading away because our people are not grasping it because they don't see anything coming out of that. You know, like the words of Jonathan Jackson, the sooner begun, the sooner done. Okay, so let's do it. On that note, I want to say Black Power and free your minds, black people. We out here dying, man. You know what I'm saying? Let's get right or get left. Peace.